Round block.
Welcome to the Round Block podcast, where we like to talk to people instead of about them. Welcome to the Round Block podcast, where we like to talk to people, not about them. And we have a, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what your position you're running for?
My name is Paul Morgan, and I'm running for governor of Hawaii 2022. Paul Morgan.
Right on. Hey, well, thank you. You guys made the drive out here from Waimea. So it's like a hour and a half drive. People don't understand how big Island really is, but it's pretty big. So, I appreciate that. Thank you for taking your time. And thank you, Mo, for arranging this. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait. But already, like I was saying inside my in my little post that I did, I like what I see over here. I like that. I like the grassroots movement. And especially coming from politicians that do these small, they're not small actually, they're pretty big things, but doing it yourself. I think a lot of times with politicians, they get they get influence because they need money for a camera crew or so this to me, it's already looking good from my perspective. So right on, man.
Thanks.
I like
Appreciate
what you're doing.
that.
Grassroots networking, what is that called? Call that.
We call it team building over here.
Team building, right? Okay. So, why don't you give us a little background? Where you're from, how you came to be here in Hawaii, and what motivated you to run for politics, man. Now you gotta have like a set of big balls to run for politics now. So I want to understand that. People are always asking me like, "Hey, why don't you run?" I was like, "Well, first off, I am a convicted felon. That's part of my history. So I don't think I can. Also, I run 3 clothing lines, and I'm a parent, so that's sucking up a lot of my time, and I just don't think I can afford to do that right now. So, yeah. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Well, I was born and raised in Mississippi, a town called Batesville, Cortland, all of that little small town area, right? Kind of like Hilo, Keao, kind of that pretty much that connection. Single family mom. She was 17 when she had me. And, growing up in a small town, everybody knew each other. And I had a dream, right, along the lines of Martin Luther King Jr. And I remember sitting at the foot of her bed, watching him give that speech, "I have a dream." And what went off inside of me was, I want to help people like that man, right? And about this same time, I'm watching the Chicago Bears playing the Detroit Lions and Barry Sanders versus Walter Payton, two of the best whoever did it. And, I'm so fired up now. I'm telling my mom what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a pro football player. I want to buy you a house, right? So having all that fire inside of me, and my mom said something to me very simply. She said, "You can be whatever you want to be. You got to be willing to work hard for it. And don't ask anybody for help until you've done your part, right? You've done your best." So taking all of that into consideration, I mean, she's probably 23 years old at this time, right? I'm 6, 7 years old. And just to reflect on that right now, the wisdom in just that statement. So she was working. She'd go to work and go to school at nights. So we basically had the neighbors watching us, my cousin coming over and helping us out, all those kind of different things. And that was pretty much our path of growing up. Be in the house before dark. Do that homework before you go to bed. Make sure that house is clean. And make sure you have those grades in place before you play sports. So, there were very few options for us coming out of that town. You could join the military, or you can figure something out. And what I figured out was I had some genes that I could play football. and fortunately, in 7th grade, that was the start of getting me out of that town. So, speeding things up, we were the first team to win a state championship in our hometown at the highest level at South Panola High School in Batesville, Mississippi. And I was fortunate to play with 4 other guys who went on to play in the SEC, Dwayne Rudd, Johnny Jones, Malika Griffin, and Deshae Townsend. Deshay's still coaching at the Chicago Bears. Dwayne Rudd was a first-round draft pick. Malik and Johnny were cousins. They went to Ole Miss. And I had the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt University. And it was because of academics and what I could do on the football field.
Mhm.
So that afforded me that opportunity to get out of our small town and to have a shot at it, right? Have a shot at life. And, get there, get to Nashville, Tennessee, and my mind is blown because I'm 18 years old, I'm on my own, I'm doing my thing, but my focus is still there, right?
Mhm.
Just had a classmate flew over and they spent the last week in Kona. So we were talking some of those stories about, we didn't have a clue then.
Yeah.
I was the guy walking around in the practice shorts and the t-shirt because I knew I couldn't go back home. So I had to stay focused on what I was there to do.
Mhm.
And fortunately, I was able to graduate in 4 years, of course, with a lot of summer school, right, to get it done. Had an opportunity to play some arena football after those years,
Okay.
and majored in what's called human and organizational development.
Okay.
So basically, individuals and organizations work efficiently in order to create systems and processes out of them, right?
Mhm.
That's what I do now as a business consultant.
Mhm.
So taking all of those things, taking all that training, economics was my favorite class. Had an opportunity to serve in the National Guard between Hawaii and Mississippi and Arkansas.
Mhm.
And had that same dream as a child to live in Hawaii.
Mhm.
From the great escape for us as kids was through the TV, the big floor model TVs,
Yeah.
and you had the other TV on top of it, and that's the one,
The one that worked.
right? With the wire pliers, when you change the channels and you go outside and rotate the pole to get the TV station to come through better.
Yeah. We probably had the same TV too, because mine's I had to tape you had to tape like a pen. You had to hold the button down. We only had 3 stations.
Yeah.
So you had to tape that penny or nickel or whatever. Penny's usually easier to find onto the thing, and every once in a while it'd pop out. Yeah. Then it'd go like get all staticky too. So.
Oh yeah.
But if I didn't go to college or anything, but I loved reading, and I still love reading, and I kind of think that's probably the reason why.
Well,
But it helped out, like in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
My friends are into watching like TV, and it's like I like to read a book. I like to find someplace empty and quiet, and just read a book. So, and it sounds weird, but that's one of the things that I really enjoyed when I was in prison. Was just curling up in my little rack, man, just pounding a book and hitting page turners, and it was a kind of cool little getaway in there.
Yeah. Well, as professional careers got into those things, right? I was able to work as what's called a PTAC director, Procurement Technical Assistance Center director. And my job was to help small minority, veteran, and woman-owned businesses to sell to the state, local, and federal government. I also worked as an adult juvenile probation officer, a juvenile probation officer. I worked in child protective services. I even worked in a prison since I've been in Hawaii, right? So having a full scope of the worst situations that people can be in, whether by their own design or by somebody else, right? Children and youth, right?
Yeah.
To the perspective of being in a prosperous business environment and just considering that spectrum. It all starts with people having the right support early, right?
Definitely. Okay, so when you look at Hawaii's, political environment right now, what's your thought on Hawaii's political? Because it just like within the last 2 years, it just went to shit. Like I actually thought it was kind of like it was there was some growth in it. I saw a lot of small businesses beginning to thrive. A lot of smaller business because of the internet and the ability to market yourself for free or your business product or service. I saw some growth there, and that growth just went out the window, within the last 2 years. So, coming to office, when you get it now, you're gonna actually acquire a shit show. So, and because you're the new guy, not only that, you'll face a little bit of criticism from the local community because you're not Hawaiian, you don't have koko, and you didn't grow up here. You'll face a little bit of just being honest. You'll face a little bit of criticism on that end. I get criticized by them too. So it's just one of those things. Some people are just so unhappy that they like to vent their negative views on life, and you're going to be a target. Like I'm a target also sometimes too. But what would you do to kind of uplift and get us out of this shitty environment that we're in right now?
Well, what has not happened in the past is accountability for the elected leaders, the elected officials. And I mean from a fiscal perspective to a departmental perspective, and just not taking the considerations of the people who a lot of times do know better.
Mhm.
The governor appoints a cabinet of up to 20 people, and these should be the best people that Hawaii has to offer for the sake of the service of the state.
Mhm.
There's over 50 department heads and deputies that the governor appoints and approves as well.
Mhm.
And then there's those 170 departments, boards, and commissions that the governor appoints as well. So just considering, like we mentioned, the feedback from the actual people who know better, especially in their own communities,
Mhm.
these boards that are set up for those reasons, it makes all the sense in the world that that information is accepted in the way that the state is allowed to function.
Oh,
So you
okay.
have a budget for the state, right? And that's pretty much a fixed thing, right? The
Mhm.
revenue that's coming into the state. And then you have these 26 or so departments that are basically managed because of what's allowed or what comes in from the state. So being a governor who chooses the right people, and I say this as we go through this campaign, we're recruiting people as we go along the way.
Mhm.
That cabinet, people who know better. And sometimes it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Not everybody wants to be out front.
Mhm.
I'm just fortunate that I have that confidence in that I'm not afraid to be out front, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty good at bringing people together for all the right reasons, and accepting that sacrifice of what's in it for the best interest of the people.
Mhm.
My basic needs are all I need, right? And for a person like me, I was afraid of not having a family.
Mhm.
So now that I have those things together, I'm able to thrive. And this is about me putting my best foot forward and actually bringing people together for the greater good.
Mhm. Oh, wow, I like that answer. Um, okay, so this is what I noticed. Like, I like Billy Kinoy. He faced some criticism, in the past about his P card transactions and whatnot, and people vent to me. Oh, I was doing this. I was just like, okay, well, I see him at Honolulu surfing pretty often. Um, I see him at the airports. Really nice guy. I think with all like politicians, they have to kind of like, they're very, but he remembered my name, which was surprising and I appreciated. Um, but also the fact that I see him at these local places. He feels like one of us, yeah. Um, so where do you hang out at? Do you hang out with us? Because I like to tell people all the time. I was like, they're up in their country clubs deciding what laws are going to pass and what policies are going to be created for themselves. It's not for the community; it's just for themselves. And they have these dinners. What makes you different, and how are you going to do things differently? Where somebody like say Dubes or somebody would say, hey, let's go to lunch. Let's go grab a couple of beers. And there's this, and maybe he's from Waimea or wherever. And this is the problem out here. And how do we solve this? Already I can see that you're really good talker and stuff. And you see, if you're good with business, that's to me that's a plus, because you know how to mitigate a problem, solve it, and create a win-win within your business or company. So, I mean, I do the same. I micromanage a lot of personal things within my company too. So I can't even imagine what kind of headache it's going to be for you. So, how would you? Where do you hang out at, and how are you going to be different so that the community can talk to you? They can get some of your time and stuff. And not that you're a servant, but you work for the community for their interests. And I never see these other guys out there. So I was kind of
Yeah,
stoked I got a
great,
podcast.
great question. And just, the path to that office of where have I been and where do I hang out, right? So, since I've been in Hawaii, seeing me at different coffee shops to the point of, hey, coffee shop, I can help you grow your business, right? And wanting to build something with the coffee industry in order to grow it, actually, right? Through fundraisers through the mainland.
Mhm.
And from that point, being employed by the state, working in corrections, of actually being boots on the ground in the facilities, of trying to figure out creative ways to give the respect of the person who's in the custody and care control of the state,
Mhm.
in order to inspire them in a way that, hey man, I know what it's about when everybody's together in the facility, but when you have that moment to think about yourself, right?
Mhm.
We can talk back and forth on what I can do to help you eventually make that change. Because I used to make work in juvenile probation and adult probation. So I can share some insight on some programs and opportunities that can help you while you're inside versus when you're outside. And then even more so going into being a football coach at Kamehameha schools and working as from the Hilo side when I first arrived back in 2013, and going into the public access TV station in order to have Mobile Joe's brand TV show, and just talking with the ladies inside the office, and my background comes up of playing football, and they say, you need to go coach at our high school. And I asked them, well, where is the high school? And they say, Kamehameha Schools. And how do I get there? And when should I go? They say, go now. So I left the TV studio and went out to Kamehameha Schools and called the athletic director, Chemo Weaver. Chemo sends me to his head coach, Dan Lyons. It goes to his voicemail. And by that time, I'm at the security gate. I'm turning around. I'm driving back into town. And Dan calls me back and says, Are you close by? And I'm back by Walmart this time. I said, yeah, I can be back there in a few minutes. So I turn around and go back. Dan Lyons and I talk about 3.5, 4 hours. And he says, I want you on my team as a coach. And the position is coaching wide receivers. Never coached wide receivers before in my life, but I can figure it out, right?
Yeah,
because
I
I
like
know
that.
some pretty good wide receivers.
Yeah, that too.
And at that point, one of the biggest offensive linemen I've ever seen in my life, Manly Kanoa, looks at me with all the intensity in the world and says, bro, if you screw this up, it's on you, right? I'm looking right back at him saying, bro, I'm not going to screw this up. So it's on you, right? So just a gentle giant of a person, and to have that opportunity to coach at Kamehameha Schools from 2014 on to 2017 when I moved to Kona and opened up my insurance agency at the time. I continued to coach at Kealakehe with Coach Sam before he left, and then eventually coaching with Coach Wyatt Nahale, who's also a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So having these types of connections in the community it's just people who want to do what's good by the kids and by our families and by the community as a whole. Mm-hmm. I'm also a board member on West Hawaii Community Healthcare Center, and just my passion about being on that is about healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. Having sufficient healthcare and being a part of recruiting that talent that we need in Hawaii to manage these health disparities that we have. Mm-hmm. So where do I hang out? I'm between home and I say work, mm-hmm. right? And we just have a newborn, so I'm spending a lot more time at home with the newborn baby and taking Grant to school and picking him up, and we're on this trail now to talk with people. So you can pretty much find me online. Yeah. You can call the campaign, email the campaign. Mm-hmm. If it's in the direction that we're going, mm-hmm. we'll pick that stop up. If it's not in that direction, we'll reschedule it for a time that fits. Mm-hmm. And because we have technology with social media and Zoom and Duo and all these other different platforms that we can use, everybody can pretty much fit in and find me pretty much anywhere in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's cool. Great answer too, okay. I mean, even me, like my trolls, man, I got some internet trolls out there too. But I always tell them too, like I come over at 4:00 in the morning, man, and I know through social media, I'll see some people kind of attack me on social media, and offer a response, I usually try to match their energy, you know what I mean? It's mirror matching, yeah, Carnegie. But sometimes even mirror and matching, because they're so sarcastic, then it becomes a shouting match almost, all the texts go to capital with exclamation points at after each comment, yeah. And so I've learned over the years with interacting just through social media. Sometimes, actually, more often than not, educating someone about your perspective goes a lot further because sometimes like I said, it turns into a shouting match. Then you'll lose somebody that could have been very valuable to your point and to your journey and your path, and they might have just gotten it wrong. So are you big on social media? And I want to get to the healthcare thing too, because you have a history in athletics too. But are you active on social media? Do you interact with the public through social media?
Before we got to this campaign, all I had was a Facebook page, and I took a shot at an Instagram an Instagram page. So that's been a learning curve, and as we're going through this, we're attracting some people who have that especially and have that art.
Mhm.
But for me, being able to communicate the idea, right, in a calm, straightforward manner that is not emotionalized, right? Because that emotional energy is coming from something else other than what I'm bringing.
Mhm.
I make sure to check myself in any of those situations because what you mentioned, my past in athletics, working in corrections, right?
Mhm.
Respect first, right?
Mhm.
Respect first, because I want to hear what the person has to say, and I want them to hear what I have to say, right?
Mhm.
But given that respect of what you say is important and it matters,
Mhm.
right? Because I believe the same thing about myself. So with this campaign, we basically simplified the message down to ABC 1, 2, 3, right? The the 1, 2, 3s are people, places, and things, and the ABCs are the issues that we want to resolve through a simple, straightforward approach,
Mhm.
right? Without one, increasing the overhead of the state, two, without causing people to think they're going to lose their jobs, and three, it works in the best interest of all the citizens in the state of Hawaii.
Mhm.
So taking that grassroots effort and utilizing the information that's already available to us, like a study from Hilo that says that the top 5 issues in the state of Hawaii are healthcare, education, technology, right? Local issues, and then affordable housing.
Mm.
Taking those 5 different issues and then resolving them through that ABC of how are we going to increase the shortage of healthcare professionals to the state of Hawaii. So it's a recruiting effort in those people in those places doing those things that we need to attract them to Hawaii. The 2nd to 3rd year medical student who still has an opportunity to work underneath a physician in the state of Hawaii while they're finishing up their residency and all those different things in an area that's considered loan forgiveness, right? They have that loan forgiveness that a lot of medical students acquire. And then the nursing schools, right?
Mhm.
Attracting that talent to Hawaii as well. And then fortunately, University of Washington has, through their own resources, brought in a physician's assistant school just in Kealakekua. And they're looking to expand it to address these health issues.
Mhm.
And then you have the support staff that goes along with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just saw Washington State with Rolovich that just got fired.
Yeah.
Oh no, he was forced to resign. So I mean, that I was going to bring this since we're talking about healthcare and stuff. How do you feel about the whole COVID situation? And we have this, so the reason why we can't attract and we have to outsource and attract nurses from out of state is because the median price of a home here is so high. And I have a bunch of ideas on how to correct these things too. I may or may not be correct, but I think there are some pretty good ideas. But how do you attract these nurses? Because it's at a set pay rate, but when you come into town now, you either have to own or rent, and you're gonna look at a 3-bedroom on Oahu. It's pretty cheaper over here, but 3-bedroom on Oahu, it's about $3,000 a month. You know what I mean? Not many people, and that's just for your rent to live in someplace decent and safe. 3-bedroom. So you got you and your kids and your husband. It's pretty average home size, but you're doing $3,000 in rent just, and say then you have to have childcare, maybe, or you just have a stay-at-home husband, which now you only have, you have a single form of income coming in. So it can be compounding. The problem is a lot more complicated than I would just say than finding a job for people because of the high cost of living. But also I think the high cost of living is where it's become Hawaii has become a tourist playground. And you have all these, the big companies like the hotels and stuff that, encourage people. And when you come here, you want to stay here. So you're looking to get a vacation home or stuff. And that pushes out the people that actually live here. So, how do we keep our the talent and people in Hawaii here in Hawaii? So to me, it's not about bringing people from outside. It's how do we keep them, the ones that are here, how do we keep them here? How do we allow them to thrive, in their ancestral homes?
Absolutely. And a part of that ABC, the B part is the economic incentive, right? Allowing those economic incentives for those physicians and those nurses, because we have nursing schools here as well, right? But because of the demand, we need some of that help from the outside, right? And then the C is what is the return on the investment? So the return on the investment is to take that time and to work in those nonprofits, right? Volunteer. Not every doctor wants to work in a clinic for community service, right? So being able to take those physicians and those nurses and those lawyers and those teachers and all those different people to volunteer their time to work in these nonprofits to inspire the younger kids who are growing up, right? We have over 3,000 nonprofits in the state of Hawaii. And a lot of them, they don't have a space, right? So nights and weekends, talking about public-private partnerships along the same lines of solving these problems, we have the schools that are available that these nonprofits can do everything from after-school programs to weekend programs. So just utilizing the resources that we have within the state that the government has more control or access or the authority over, right? Utilizing these public-private partnerships in the state for the sake of what you just mentioned, being in the schools, after-school programs, because we know between 3 and 6 are those times that kids get in trouble, but we have these nonprofits who have some pretty good programs that could help mentor these kids into becoming the doctors and the teachers and what all that we need, the farmers, the sustainability piece of Hawaii. And teaching them young, that's the key to it. Right? You can't expect a kid 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and all they've been hearing most of their life is you got to get away from Hawaii to make a living. You got to get away because it's too high, the housing price is too high.
Oh, that's facts.
A part of that, too, will go straight to the affordable housing piece. There are 2 agencies, federal agencies, with those same public-private partnerships, right? You have HUD and you have USDA that have housing programs. It's just a matter of bringing in the technology, and we've been working on these issues as we go through this campaign to resolve this, right? Of 3 of the biggest land districts on the Big Island, from Kau to Puna to Hamakua, there's opportunities to put these affordable housings less than 2,000 square feet, between 400 and 2,000 square feet, with the right developers who've done it in the past in Hawaii. So just bringing the government together to say, hey, we have the land, and learning from the previous projects that have already been done, one in Kona, 111 units, that's going to stay within the median income of $37,000, right? Yeah. It's going to stay affordable for 40 years, right? So there are those opportunities. It's just a matter of getting their information out to people so that they know developers. One, they can make some money into it, right? Because it is a business. And 2, we do have people, because there is approximately a 3-year wait list for people to get into affordable rentals, right? Public housing. And then 3, there are people who have a 640 or better credit score, and this is through the USDA direct program, where they can get a house financed up to $500,000 or so. So in a household of 1 to 4 people, that income can exceed $91,000. In a household of 5 to 8, you're thinking multi-generation homes, $121,000 or so, right? So those opportunities exist. It's just a matter of getting the information out to the people in a way that they can understand it and simply apply.
I think, but so with the 120,000 per multi-generation home, I think we're assuming that everybody in that household does have a job.
The income can't not exceed that
the
amount.
income can exceed.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because I was thinking, man, I have some, I have some family members that, they all live at their auntie's house, man. They got their 3 kids. But
Right.
I understand how hard it is for them too, but, single, only one of them's working because the other one got to work and pick up the kids and stuff. So I was thinking, oh, shoot, you have to really start at the bottom. And I think starting at the bottom would, in my opinion, would be not letting people buy vacation homes here already. Putting some kind of cap on it. There needs to be a cap on it. We have land inventory is very valuable, and because it's so valuable and rare, and that it's limited, that it drives the housing prices up, and it drives it only up for the locals because outside money that makes really good money outside of here can come in and buy. And what they're doing is, and I rent Airbnbs quite often, and it's more often than not, they don't live in Hawaii. Yeah. So renting, I feel a lot better if I rented from somebody local. Yeah, just to be honest.
So that's a part of that piece too, right?
Mhm.
In these after school programs, in these community programs where we're educating people, and this is where my background comes in on that entrepreneurship side, right? Teaching people how to start, manage, and grow successful businesses.
Mhm.
What's your idea, Keone? Okay, you want to be a property manager in Hawaii. So what is that going to take? Let's vet this idea all the way out to the point that we know it's a business,
Mhm.
whether a nonprofit or a for-profit.
Mhm.
And then from there, we'll choose the correct legal structure. We'll come up with a strategic plan on who has funding to buy your type of the properties that you want to rent out. We'll create that business plan that's basically a narrative about the story and 3 years worth of projections in order to create that marketing plan, 12 months, what you're going to do year round, the advertising plan, sales plan, and then being able to pitch it to the point of you have a business now and it makes sense to you. So you have that confidence in being a part of your own local economy,
Mhm.
right?
I think I think the Hawaii school system is only, the kids, they're set up for failure. You get thrown out into the world and you're forced to be an adult, and you have no idea about credit because we didn't learn that in school. Why isn't credit being taught in school? It should come with, it should actually, credit should come before
After the ABCs,
it should come before the history lessons that their flawed history and their fake history that they like to push out. But we should learn how to manage our money correctly, and and taxes. And I had no idea that you get to assign 20 cabinet members. So that makes it makes sense, but it only makes sense if you're going within the community and you're handpicking these cabinet members. Even if they say stuff that you don't like, your part of your cabinet has to keep you in check too.
Right.
Yeah. So I like that. I had no idea. And what's the process to be on that cabinet? Or
the governor simply is able to pick them, and at that point, they're approved by the House, right? And then it's pretty much a done deal. So the
Okay.
governor pretty much picks them, and they have to go through the process of being approved by the House.
I remember those commercials when I was a kid. Was it Schoolhouse Rock? We just did a design. Like, remember that? Remember they had like how bills get passed?
Yeah,
That little
yeah.
cartoon. We don't have that anymore. But I feel they don't want you to know these things too. So how do we educate and get the youth interested in these processes again? Just how do we?
The easiest way from right now with what we have right now, and I'm talking about literally you and I right now. We have some cameras here, we have some computers here, we have some microphones here.
Mhm.
The easiest way is to have a camp for kids to teach them how to do this,
I like that. I like
and
that
to
idea.
send them over to Naleo or Olelo or some of the public access TV stations in order to have their own shows. There's 2 schools on the Big Island that I know for sure that have a business program, and they have the TV programming, and that's Waikea and that's Kealakehe.
Mhm.
So encouraging these kids to take what they're doing on social media, to have their own TV show, to talk about credit, right?
Mhm.
That business teacher, hey, this is the project that we're going to do. We're going to have the kids in my class, that accountability piece, giving kids something to do. We're gonna have them start their own show, right?
Mhm.
And the whole show is the whole classroom coming together. Everybody produces one show. We all work together. Who's going to do cameras? Because not everybody wants to be out front. Who's going to write it, right? That's a camp. If we can teach kids how to do all these other different things
Mhm.
from even football, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If we can teach them how to hit a baseball and all these other different things, we can teach them how to craft a message to help themselves sooner versus later under the guidance of an adult
Mhm.
who knows better.
Yeah. I think it'd have to, like, I always like to, my idea of what's fair and what's right also is, and it's having many people involved. Because, when there's just, when you have a gatekeeper, the gatekeeper, like, I dealt with this in business, and business a lot of the times it's, you become very popular on social media, and then that kind of clouds your, you kind of forget where you're from almost, yeah. And then it becomes about that. You like, and there's a rush of adrenaline, and it's a form of power and stuff too, yeah. And then you forget where you're from, and you forget your roots, and then your message changes. So it's always a weird thing for
Well,
me to.
Well, fortunately, and we laugh about this, and we talked about this early in the campaign I went through that stage early,
Mhm.
playing college football, right? Coming down through the tunnel, everybody's cheering for you, all those kind of different things. But one of the most humbling things about sports and professional sports is if you don't do your job, people are going to laugh at you, right?
Or you're gonna get hurt.
Exactly. But we focus on the part of people laughing at you because we already know the thought that goes through your mind before every play is this the last play? Break. And then you shift your mind to touchdown, right?
Yeah.
That's that focus. So with this campaign, it's about, when you get that rush or that energy, it goes back to why are you getting that energy? It's because you're supposed to be doing your job.
Mhm.
So focus on doing your job.
Okay, okay. Oh, I like that. So, I just went to the Maui Freedom Rally too. And their thing with this whole COVID thing is, and I understand this, and people are like, "Oh, you're anti-vax." I'm not anti-vax. I'm very. I think I had it like when I was a child, for polio and other things that we did have. But I also remember, chicken pox. And it was always known as from adults and your parents and stuff that when you get it's easier to deal with chicken pox and develop the healthy immunities when you're young than it is when you're older. Plus, you don't have a job. You stay home from school for a few days, and you're good. Later on, when you have to pay a $3,000 mortgage or rent, that thing, by the time you're done getting sick, you're on your ass in the streets. But right now, there's a lot of focus on yeah, just get vaccinated, you know. And now there's these incentives, and to me, the incentive thing is wrong. There's these incentives and there's punishment also. So, like I like to tell people that ask me about it, I'm just like, the water's dangerous. 100% of the people that go into the water can drown, but you move in a little bit, you get comfortable, just like surfing, because I surf. You know, you know, if you can't surf 12-foot waves, don't fucking paddle out. Know your limits and ease your way into getting into 12 feet waves if that's your goal. But you do what you're comfortable with. But nowadays it's just like you can't go in the water. The government overreach is like you could drown, don't go in the water. And then they empower all these other people and groups and fund them to watch you and say, hey, he just went in the water. And we've become a community of snitches telling on each other and and judging others right now. And to me, that's the biggest problem when you incentivize things and there's punishment also if you don't do these things. How do we get it back to this place where, hey, okay, if you are that afraid of, just like athletics also, if you're that afraid, don't play football. Play something like tennis. Very physical, you get a good workout, very athletic, but you won't get hit. So it's that thing where you could be accountable on your part, but just because you want to play tennis, don't tell me I can't play football, because basically that's what it is right now. If you didn't get this, then you can't do that. So you have to allow the people to really do what they want and choose the path that they want in life. I might not be into skydiving, you know, but he might. But just because I'm not into it, and I think it's very dangerous, that's the reason why I don't skydive, you know, I still think he should be able to. How do we get back to that place? And, you know, what's your stance on that? Because I think right now, Big Island is the only place that didn't, because I just came from Maui last week and I was Honolulu the week before that. I couldn't even eat in the restaurant because I don't have a vaccination card. And it's come to this point where I almost refuse, even though I might have, you know, thought about getting it if given some time. And I'm patient with putting something in my body. But given some time, I might have gotten it. But now I'm at this point where I just don't like people telling me what to do, you know, and how do we pass that point? You know, and what's your thought on because Big Island is the only, like, Roth is the only one that didn't issue these vax cards for a restaurant.
Well, I'm not for vaccine mandates, right? And I'm pro-choice, right? Freedom of choice, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and just the things that go along with it. And I agree with you. You are right. People should have a choice about what they want to do, as long as it doesn't infringe on someone else's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? Basically, if what you're doing is going to cause me hurt or harm, I don't agree with those things. But if Dubes wants to skydive, then he has more than just that right to skydive in a safe airplane that doesn't crash before it allows him to be able to jump out of, right? I had a drill sergeant who said, why would anybody want to jump out of a safe airplane is beyond him, even though he had earned his wings. But as far as the vaccine passport, like I said, I disagree with that as well. And what it comes down to is choice, right? This country is about choice. Life is about choices. And what's being pushed on everybody is a vaccine that is not necessarily the whole story. There are studies that say natural immunity is just as effective as vaccines. But in Hawaii, we're only being told about a vaccine. Had a meeting on Maui at the GOP there with Dr. Robin Armstrong, who is one of the physicians in Texas, part of a group of hospitalists in Texas, where they had success with what's the drug called? Remeron?
Oh, remdesivir, RSDV.
No, it's another one. Regeneron. Regeneron is the name of it. And they have these clinics in Texas where you just simply go to a website and sign up, and you can go get your Regeneron treatments. And in all of the people that were treated in these clinics, only one person died. And this was the most vulnerable population. If we go back and look at all of pre-COVID and what this thing was about, the vaccine was about, it was only about the most vulnerable getting vaccinated. And the most vulnerable were clearly identified as those 65 and older and had immune compromised systems.
Yes.
Right? That's only what it was about. And then after whatever date, it turns into everybody needs to be vaccinated. Why would you want to vaccinate some of the healthiest people in the world, from professional athletes, from NBA to NFL to military to you pretty much let's name the healthiest people in the world.
Military, definitely military. Prisoners are most of them are pretty healthy. Professional athletes, very healthy, very in tune with their body.
People who own fitness businesses, and you pretty much name it, right? The percentage of the population that is not in obese category. And if you look at the people who are dying from COVID, right? We're not being told the complete story on that as well, right? These people have
immune
compromised systems, right? From the top 10 areas, and it's listed on the CDC's website as well. We're just not getting that part of it. And a part of transparency and what we're bringing out is, let's foundationally as a government, let's do what's in the best interest of the state of Hawaii. And that's all of us coming together for all the right reasons, because who doesn't want to live?
Yeah.
right?
or my thing was just transparency. You know, transparency, and there's this big talk in the Hawaiian community because some of our Hawaiian leaders were saying, yeah, just get vaccinated, just get vaccinated, and my thing with them was just like all of a sudden, you want to just blindly accept the state's narrative without doing your own research, but it's because it's easy. Getting a shot is very easy. Anybody can do it. Try running 3 miles every morning.
You bring that up. There was a study in South Korea which had one of the lowest infection rate in the world, and one of the studies was 150 minutes of exercise a week actually counters the effects of COVID.
I don't doubt that. I do not doubt that, and I feel like, and I watched this. I watched this whole thing play out, and I used to be on the other side of the fence about it. I thought it was like, I was like, oh, I bet you it's worse than it really is. The government just doesn't want us to freak out. It's probably worse than it is, and and then I did my own independent research, and then things didn't start to make up. Not make up, add up. Then I went and I just compared, mortality rates from, the previous 4 years. And I was just like, hey, wait, okay, all of a sudden, since 2017, we still have the same amount of death within the same range. It's I believe it's within a few to several hundred deaths in the whole state, but it's the same. But we have this deadly pandemic. Why wouldn't it be double or triple? Not that I want it to be double or triple, but why wouldn't it be substantially higher? And it's not.
Yeah, you're asking a lot of good questions, and then some of the knowledge that I came up on was, when we talk about facilities, and let's talk about hospitals exclusively, right? When they're bursting at the seams, that means they don't have enough staff. Right? Enough staff to cover the beds. There's still some empty beds, but we don't have enough staff to cover it because one thing is a lot of the nurses are converting to travel nurses in order to make a living, right? Across the country. So we're not necessarily we're getting some information, but the transparency of let's finish the thought. Let's finish the sentence. Let's bring all those pieces to the table so we can make a decision on maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago, we should have focused more on expanding the infrastructure in the state of Hawaii through hospitals, building more hospitals, building more rooms, recruiting more talent to be here, right? The economic incentives for physicians to stay in Hawaii, right? Having affordable housing. There was a $500 million bill that was passed a few years ago that was supposed to address affordable housing and homelessness. But where's the accountability where's affordable housing? How has it addressed homelessness? And where are the receipts?
Yeah. I was going to say, where are the receipts? Audit. There needs to be an audit. Where's the money spent? It's just like Ige's his little Vax passport. He received what? $15 million for this tracking thing that I think, if I remember correctly, that a relative was in charge of putting together. Now, I can fact check me on that on the internet, but that's what I heard and that's what I understood. And I think I did look it up and I did get the link sent, and I was just like, oh wow, are you sure that they're related? But even if they're not related, that person still got the money. And I've traveled, I don't travel as much, but I've traveled during the pandemic. Just not, I used to fly weekly. So, now it's just maybe every other month, but like yourself, I had a kid also during this pandemic. But so that, and that slowed it down a lot too. But, like you said, where's the receipts? How do we see where the money was spent, and they should have to provide that information. There's that little muddy water area where we can't see where the money's being spent is the reason why there's so much speculation. And the money might have been spent correctly, but since we can't see it, a lot of us are just assuming it's spent, it was corrupt and pocketed in backhand deals, and that's not our fault. That's the government's fault. That's the state's fault for not having this, something where the people can see this transparency. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all this technology, why isn't there? I talked about this about Hawaiian Homes too. Why isn't there an app that shows where you're at on a list, so you can see where you're at? Now, so this Hawaiian Homes, wait list is a mystery. It's like a myth. Now, you don't know where you're at. You don't know when you qualify. You don't know when you might qualify, and you don't know who jumped the line also too. So that's another thing too. So how do we become as a state more transparent, and how do you see yourself solving that transparency problem?
Well, it's along the lines of following the federal model of transparency. You have what's called Freedom of Information Acts, or FOIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So applying those same type of standards to the state, it's pretty common sense, Kellen. It really is. There's a budget, and going to the website, everybody can see the state's budget. But as far as the receipts, that's the accountability piece that everybody wants to see as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's my gripe with Hawaiian Homes. Yeah, but okay, so like I mentioned earlier, how do we get out of this financial shit show that we're in right now? And I was gonna ask you about marijuana, because growing up in Hawaii, I remember orchid farms being like the big thing out here, which is why you have orchid land, and you have all these. And if you drive around Hilo right now, you'll see all this decrepit and all these nurseries that obviously didn't make it because we got outsourced by places that have a similar environment and temperature and stuff, like Thailand and Vietnam, and some of those places that are similarly along the equator, like Hawaii is. So not right now, us not being allowed to grow hemp. I think they just made hemp farming illegal. No, it was just a hemp sale. Was it? Oh, cartridges and edible. Okay. But hemp remediates the soil. Hemp's a good thing. Also, we're going to get outsourced because we don't have a foot in the door with growing cannabis, such as Colorado, Oregon,
Illinois.
Yeah, so all these places, they got a jump start from us. But we're one going back to the state thing, we're one of the highest. We have the highest overhead as a state, most expensive place to live. I think it's in the top 3. Hawaii's in the top 3, and we're not, and we have the best environment to grow and farm, but we're not able to do this. Well, all these other states can do that as well. So what's your stance on that? How do you feel about that?
So my position on increasing the revenue to the state of Hawaii is, of course, through research and development. So research and development in those different areas that we know that there's a pattern that has worked.
Mm-hmm.
We know growing marijuana in certain states has worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at these different avenues and use the best information as possible in order to create a pilot project first in Hawaii, right? Mm-hmm. And once we feel our way around it to a point where we know where it can address our economic issues, our community development issues, all those kind of things, we know that it works. Then we can expand it to the point we have the controls on it that it does what it's supposed to do, right? You talked about that
proof of concept.
Proof of concept, exactly. So I'm in favor of growing. We have the medicinal, right? So let's grow it on another level, and let's control that growth of it through the area of research and development. You mentioned apps. You mentioned some other different things that can help with it, right? Help facilitate us getting that to the point of we know it's really good revenue, and it's a really good thing for the state, and it's in the best interest, right? One, it doesn't increase the overhead. Two, like you mentioned about hemp actually cleans up the land from what I understand as well. So that can help us as well. So just taking all of this research and development approach to it and building it out as a pilot project, right? Of course, we eventually have to get those kind of things worked out through the House, but to to start it off as a research and development, yes, I'm in favor of it.
Because I know that Ige has said that he'll veto it all the time. So everybody's just kind of like, man, we're missing out. Like we have a unique opportunity to become one of the world's best marijuana producers.
Right.
And that gives jobs, that brings money into the state. And
it's not like we'd be starting from scratch, right?
we all know how to grow weed anyway.
Well, benchmark best practices, right? From those states that are already doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. Having those relationships with those governors who are already doing it right. Of course, they'll tell us about the things that aren't being done right, so we can attempt to resolve those things before it comes to Hawaii, right?
Well, because I was already out of prison, when that whole talk was being talked about. And I've watched Vegas within a year of it being introduced as an idea go from full, medical to full rec. And I was just like, man, Hawaii should have came before that, because we were in the talks about doing that before. We have a better natural growing environment where, like how you said, it's not taxing on our resources. We have the resources. The resources are here. They're available, just like mostly all the farming thing. I have other farmers that grow papayas and stuff that are sending me the letters telling them that not to grow, and the government will cut them a check as if they were growing papayas still yet. What's the reason for that? Is there trying to create this what do they call that? Scarcity or they call it shock testing. Are they shock testing to see how, manipulating the markets to see how people react to it? And, the community is the one that suffers for these things. Yeah. Like, if we're not given that chance right now to go full rec, the world's going to pass us by. We won't have that chance. And we need the revenue. Hawaii needs that revenue. There should be more farming incentives. And it shouldn't be up to a few gatekeepers. Right now, we have a few gatekeepers that issue it to, groups that have a doctor on board. And I've watched this go from a lottery. You could be a dispensary, because me and my friends all got together. We're like, okay, we're all going to get together. We're all going to enter the lottery, and whoever gets it, we're going to split the license. Kind of like a hui. And then right there, you need to have a doctor on board. You need to, and they started making it so that the regular Joe Schmo, which is myself, couldn't be involved in the game, in the, what do they call that? Ganjapreneurship, yeah. But, we got outsourced. How do we make it that the little guy has these opportunities, not just these big corporations that have millions of dollars to back them? It should be like a food truck almost.
Well, that game in and of itself, it's called leveraging and structuring, right? So teaching people how to leverage and structure deals, that goes back to sales 101, right? How do you do it? But is your vision big enough in order to be able to pull it off? Do you have the capacity? Do you have the desire? Do you have that team in order to be able to say, okay, well, now we need a doctor right now? Those last minute changes in order to get into the game. So just understand how the game is played from an entrepreneurial perspective. It's leveraging and structuring deals at the highest level. Bottom line.
How do we eliminate the gatekeepers, though, Paul? There's a certain group of them that have the resources. Then there's a large majority of guys like us that don't have those resources.
Well, this is that part, Keone, where you and Dubes and the rest of the mastermind, we come together, because I'll be leading the state, but I don't have all of the answers, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else knows something different that I don't know, so that we can execute the game plan as a whole. So I'm open to those conversations, because when you say eliminate, that's a pretty strong word, right? Eliminate. You're always going to get that pushback from when you attempt to eliminate someone. It's kind of like choice, right? So looking at it from a business perspective and what we need to do from that perspective, and research and development, those kind of areas, in order to bring some more players to a game or take advantage of the seats. Because you have Hawaiian homelands, right? I'll emphasize the lands part. Hawaiian homelands coming into the game of being some of these areas where we can do some of these pilot projects of growing, right? So just realizing who has a seat at the table and taking advantage of the seat at the table. That's what we're about, right? That transparency. Hey, there's an opportunity, so let's take advantage of this opportunity.
Mhm. How do we rotate the seats? Because I believe you have to rotate the seats, because even if I sat at the seat of your table with my ideas, I might become complacent. I myself might
Okay,
become
only
a gatekeeper.
at my table, you won't become complacent. We'll probably come in clapping hands and getting fired up, and like you said, that a piece of, you got the adrenaline, you got the power, you got the rush, you got all those different things. But you see that little kid over there, he doesn't have hope yet, Keone. You see that auntie and that uncle over there, they don't have a legacy yet, Keone. You see all those people in the middle who are trying to figure out where they're going to get the next meal, or how can they get a affordable house payment. They don't have it, Keone.
Yeah,
So you can't get complacent.
yeah, yeah.
We gotta suit up every day and go to work.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I believe in that too. But it's also the environment, because of the cost of living, and we're a generation of, watching, rap videos and with through Instagram and social media, seeing these, a certain group of people live a certain lifestyle that, we really admire and we want to be a part. We'd like to, you know, um, live that lifestyle as well. But the opportunities aren't there. So then we start to make a little bit of decisions that, are risky, and could land us in, jail or federal prison, and, that kind of thing. So, I really think that, as you mentioned, starting with the kids and instituting these programs, even pilot programs, but getting them involved in these things. And I know the money is there. I just know the money is there.
You know what, Keone? There's, and I was told this in one of the podcasts we did earlier in the campaign. We have all the talent we need right here.
Mhm.
So let's take all of that talent and get them educated. And I'm talking about literally just going to the PTAC to get educated and trained on government contracting and how to work with large corporations in order to be the diversity business programs in order to scale and grow their business, right? Taking all this talent and get the work over there as well,
Mhm.
right? That's just as easy as us doing this podcast.
Mhm.
Let's show you how to do it,
Mhm.
right? Let's have those opportunities on public access to do this workshop on government contracting 101.
Mhm.
But you can't leave until you ask all the questions that you have that come to mind. You can't leave until you ask all those questions, because the goal is for you to know how to do it, right? So we don't have the excuse of nobody told me, nobody showed me, and I still don't know how.
Mhm.
I could have used that excuse coming out of Mississippi.
Mhm.
But that fire that my mom lit under me was, you better help yourself first and don't ask. You know how parents talk to you, right? You better help yourself first, and you better not ask anybody else for help until you've done your best,
Mhm.
right? So with that same type of mentality, it's about, come on into this workshop and let me show you how to do it, because I have that background.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a whole lot of light bulbs going off. And then the next question is, hey, can you work as a team? Because that's called teaming.
Mhm.
And do you know what sole source contracting is? Everything from advertising to social media to, you pretty much name it.
Mhm.
You said you did some time, right?
Mhm.
So think about all the supplies and equipment that are inside of those facilities that they buy every year.
Oh yeah, that's how I know the money is there.
Right.
Because they'd have us do a job and then redo it. I'm just like, man, that's expensive. We keep on redoing the same job over and over again. But I'm stuck in here for X amount of years, so it just helps me pass the time by. But yeah, getting back to, I think we need to grow the middle class. That's there. You're always going to have people that just don't like to work, but you're going to have people that want to work. And how do we empower those groups? Because to me, that's the middle class.
We help them.
And
We
yeah,
help them.
we need to expand and grow the middle class more than any other class, in my opinion.
And we know the middle class, we know they would need what? First and foremost, they probably need some child care, or they need some help with the kids, or they need some help with the grandmas and grandpas that probably live in those multi-generational homes with them, or they're somewhere down the street, or they're in charge of making sure that they take their medications on a regular basis, right?
Mhm.
So helping those people, and the information it's already out, right? What do they need, right? The middle class,
Mhm.
they need this kind of help. So providing those incentives to help them with their children first and foremost, so that they can maybe work their overtime to get the income to come in, or to finish up, if they own their own business, that contract or their job or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And then after that, it's just a matter of asking them, how else can we help you as a government?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of I don't think there's a lot of programs that, to me these programs just seem so like hidden. How do
Well,
we get
this is the
this?
thing,
Yeah,
right?
how do we get it out there?
This is what we're doing, right?
Mhm.
Taking, and I keep calling it public-private partnerships, and a lot of the public things people don't know about. A
Mhm.
lot of the private things people may not know about. These for-profit entities that actually have a nonprofit side to them, that's about helping from a lot of different perspectives.
Mhm.
We have over 3,000 nonprofits in the state of Hawaii. Over 3,000.
Mhm.
That means they have the leverage in order to, one, build affordable housing,
Mhm.
two, to get grant funding or low interest loans for programming for families that need help, three, other creative ways to solve problems or to teach kids outside of the regular norm of school, which a lot of people have issues with because they don't feel as if the kids are being taught what they need to be taught in school.
Mhm.
So being able to address those things through nonprofits or grassroots movements, a part of what we're doing is we want these questions to come, because I can share a lot of this information that I have the experiences in,
Mhm.
right? To the point of, here are the 5 steps it takes to start a nonprofit, to get that information out.
Yeah, yeah.
And just make sure you have a board of 3 that you can trust, and it's always, the focus is about the organization and helping people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm down. Maybe we'll do a video, and we'll turn that into a project of from how to create a nonprofit to get grants. Then maybe me and you will do that project, since I got you on here. I can hold everybody listening to this.
Absolutely. Let's do it, man.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we did over an hour, and my podcast run about an hour. I think we covered some good grounds, and I liked what you have to say, and definitely more people. I hope a lot of people listen to this podcast. Oh, I wanted to ask you something else too. Okay, for me, it just seems like social media right now is the truest and purest form of news we have, because I don't see KITV4 and all these big news stations that have program directors. Okay, we all know what program directors do. They direct the program, but they're not talking about healthy choices, healthy living, and how to avoid or treatment of COVID. They just get vaccinated and you're okay. But you get vaccinated, one, you can't stop the transmission. Two, it doesn't kill the virus. It loads you up with the virus, which makes you more susceptible to spread it. They're focusing on all the horror stories, like the people that are passing away, but not the people that get it and survive it, or that get it and go through it very quickly, very painlessly, and let the public can relax about it. So there's not this that there's not this polarizing thing where you're gonna get me sick because you didn't do this. We need to just quiet that noise, and these news stations are the ones that are pushing that fear agenda. How do we get them to stop?
Well, that's going to be something that we talk about collectively as well. What we notice going
That has to be illegal.
Well, what we noticed is going through this whole campaign thing is, you expect to do the right things. You expect to put your press releases together and to, send them the way that they're supposed to go, right? You send them to every TV station, newspaper, radio, and to make the announcements. And when we have the actual event, no one shows up.
Yeah.
Right. When we go through that, and then we call the editor who says there's no and no Republican candidates running, and we call the editor who wrote the paper, and it says, no, we didn't get the email. And thank God that we track everything that we do because we were able to share the email that we actually sent to him.
Yeah.
And then he writes the story again. He says, I forgot.
You got the receipt.
So exactly. So the accountability piece, it's real in what we're doing in this campaign. And just learning that most of the media outlets in Hawaii are controlled by one entity, right?
Yeah.
And, that's a part of the accountability piece. Are you telling the people a story you want them to hear, or are you telling them a story that benefits them in their community? It's truly the news. So at the end of the day, we'll approach these entities and we'll continue to share our stories and we'll work to build those relationships with them in order to get the news out, right? About what we're doing as well. So, tying all those different things together, bottom line, Keone, it's about bringing people together. It's about building families first. It's about Paul Morgan for governor of Hawaii, win 2022, and just so many different things that we want to share with people from a transparent perspective in order to help the state of Hawaii.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much. Cool. Definitely, it's been a pleasure. I hope that if you do win, that you will come back on my podcast. We can talk about
you're invited to the inauguration.
And also, I'd like to do that project on creating a nonprofit, where I can, do a little video and show people how easy it is to go after these grants and stuff. But I want to do it on real time, and I want to show how it started, just to give people
And we'll create yours first, right? How about that? We'll take you through the actual process.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul Morgan. Thank you for coming out. Any shout outs you want to do?
Well, I'd like to thank our campaign chair, Monique DuPont, Jen Davis, the vice chair, Laurie Darling, our treasurer, Nicole Sung, our scheduler, Larry Partita, communications, Rob Rich, our issues guy, E-Class, Eric E-Class, Grayson out of Las Vegas events, Monica Price, fundraising. Just want to thank the entire team and thank you, Kona, and thank you, Maui, thank you, Hawaii, for accepting us and wanting to know more, right? Patty Domingo over in Maui says, I don't want to know anything else other than what do you stand for and why are you running, right? So just having those questions, having the opportunity to get the message out, I'd like to thank you for allowing us this opportunity. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Round Block Podcast, man, where we like to talk to people instead of about them. Thank you, guys. Close it.